Hey guys, and welcome back to Now for Something a Little Bit Different, episode 34. Today, guys, is a big day. Today, I've got not only one guest, but I've got two guests. I got my buddy Jose. Jose, welcome back. If you
Hello,
guys were
thanks
here
for
a
having
couple
me back.
episodes, he was
Yeah.
here for the Devils. And coincidentally enough, today we're also covering another movie with Oliver Reed, this time playing the bad guy, Condorman from 1981. And as well, we also have my buddy Justin. Justin,
Hey,
welcome aboard.
thank you.
Good to
Thank you.
have you,
It's
buddy.
a big honor. We've been trying to wrangle something for a while and it's finally come together.
Yeah, dude, we're so excited to have you. And just if you have a second, maybe take a second, just let us know a little bit about yourself. And I hear you have a connection to this other culprit over here. So
Never met this man in my life. No, I'm kidding. So I am the former co-host of Watch It Plus along with the lovely Jose. I had to take a leave of absence back starting the winter. I've made one return for Godzilla and Kong. And then when this opportunity arose, it's like, well, I got to give another opportunity, not just to finally get on and talk Condor Man, but to do another show with Jose. I used to do a lot of written reviews and capsule reviews online. Just kind of been taking a break from everything, but just like you probably get from most people that come on here, lifelong movie fan,
yeah.
obsessed with cinema ever since I was a little child. And to jump the gun, I even got to see something like Condor Man, but not until I was a little bit older. But I'll save that for later. So it's not a first time viewing for me.
Nice. Very, very nice. Awesome. So I guess from that, guys, I'll go into what everybody watched this week. Do you want to go first, Justin, since you're our first
Sure.
time? What did
Yeah.
you get a chance to watch this week?
All right, yeah, I got three films I can talk about quick. So the last time I was able to make an appearance on Watch It Plus was back on Godzilla and Kong, and my plus, among many things, was I mentioned how I've been on a Nicolas Cage kick because I read a book about his career, Age of Cage. He was always one
Nice.
of my favorite actors. I think I just solidified that he is my favorite. So I did get another one in this week. One of his more recent efforts. It's called Looking Glass. It's from, I believe, 2018. So he and Robin Tunney, they lose their daughter. So to try to build a new life, they decide to buy a motel out in the desert. I believe it's supposed to be Arizona or maybe the Utah desert. And
Mm,
once they're there, one, Cage discovers the looking glass, which is the former owner had a two-way mirror, or was it a one-way mirror where only he can see, in one of the rooms. So there's that seedy stuff. And is there a murder going on? What's going around? A lot of the basic plot principles are very familiar. If you've seen any of these
mm,
kind of like CD dramas before, it's
mm,
not the greatest. And I do think that the mystery isn't good or partake. It's kind of predictable and it's not all that engaging. However,
yeah.
Cage and Tunney are very good. I think the whole cast is, and it does have a really good neo noir, like neon look to it.
Okay.
Really
Nice.
like the atmosphere. So for something that was probably straight to streaming, this is actually not a bad watch. I did want
Yeah.
more from it, but I found myself engaged enough. And again, Nicolas Cage once again shows why he's just such a fantastic actor. I don't care if anyone says it. You're like, if you don't like him, you don't like him. But don't you dare tell me he's not one of the greatest actors to have ever lived.
I love
Um,
Cake, man.
he's so good, and it's nice to see him too. Like Robin Tunney, I don't know if I'd seen her in a while, and she's still just as good. So it's kind of nice to see her getting a role again. And then I switched it up, still something recent, but something of much lesser quality. I was with friends the other night, and we watched The Flood. And the best way to describe The Flood is if they made Crawl, but they only had a budget of like 10 bucks. It's very cheap. The whole gimmick is that Casper Van Dien, a bunch of other criminals, they're being transported to a correctional facility. There's a big
Mm,
hurricane happening in Louisiana, so they stop at this like low rent, very small sheriff's department to kind of stay. And lo and behold, not only is the place getting flooded, but the crocodiles are also, or sorry, alligators, not crocodiles. There's a difference. They're flooding, and there's some of the really atrocious CGI, like very shiny. It's clear they're not there. There's well, when I say fun, that's I guess you could say the so bad it's good, like watching it with
yeah.
friends, because all of the prison inmates are very stereotyped. You have the neo-Nazi, there's some really terrible dialogue and, bad performances all around. And but
Nice.
the one running gag that we loved was, so Van Dien course, he's trying, his old crew's trying to break him out of this prison because he knows where he stashed the money. So they're bringing all of these like machine guns and that. Yet every single character, when they see these alligators, forget that they have guns and almost never shoot at them. So we kept just making
We're
this
all
running
just
gag, like, why are you
terrified of
just
an
standing
alligator.
there? You have a gun, like shoot it. So
That's awesome.
so with friends, it's kind of fun, but by myself, I think it would have been pretty rough going.
Yeah.
Uh, so definitely made me appreciate Looking Glass even further because that was one that had really good style, and the Flood isn't that much higher budget wise than something you would see straight sci-fi, like the low rent end. So what are
Yeah.
you gonna do? And
Yeah.
then because we're covering a Disney comedy, I decided I've had a VHS copy of this for years, so I finally decided to watch The Devil and Max Devlin, which I did not realize came out the same year as Condorman.
Oh, it
Uh,
did.
both
Okay.
both were
Nice.
81. And what The Devil and Max Devlin is, it is Elliot Gould dies and he goes to hell, and technically the devil's assistant, not the devil himself, but portrayed by Bill Cosby, makes him a deal. If you can convert these three people into the dark side, we'll let you go back to life again. He kind of does that, but the issue here, outside of the fact that that concept doesn't really work as like a PG family comedy, since he's
Mm,
trying to convert three people, a kid, a teen, and like
mm,
a woman who wants to go into be a superstar, there's never enough time to mine any like real comedic material from those areas. And
mm,
it's very predictable. So, like, of course, he's gonna see the error of his own ways, but it's like you never really buy it because you don't have enough time for Gould to develop.
mm.
So, unfortunately, it's not really, it's kind of, regardless of what you think of a lot of these Disney like live action comedies from the 60s through the 80s, they usually had a bit of a jovial energy to them. This one
Yeah.
was more kind of like low beat, lackadaisical. So interesting to see. And the reason it's not on Disney Plus, as we all know, is because of Bill Cosby. So the idea of him playing somebody like the devil's minion now is kind of like, back then it'd be like, oh, this man's gonna play a devil's minion, and now it's just like, well, wasn't that far
Once
off.
the guy, the wholesome guy that hosted Fat Albert in every
Yeah.
episode, the innocent Mr. Huxtable, turned slowly the irony of playing the devil.
Exactly. And at that time, Gould was more known for like The Long Goodbye and stuff like
Yeah.
busting. So you're like, of course he'd play like a con man. But now I'm like, I think we'd see Gould as the more innocent human being here. But
Yeah. Which is crazy,
yeah,
right?
so fortunately, not that good of a comedy, but interesting as a timepiece. And the fact that I didn't know it came out just a couple months prior to Condorman. So that was unintentional, but
That's awesome, man.
Pudding pops.
pudding
Pudding
pups.
pops.
That's how I got the pudding pop deal.
Let me just put this in your here. Let me just put this in your drink real quick.
Oh my god.
Why is it fizzy?
Yes. Oh,
Oh man. So
why?
from there, how about yourself, Jose? What did you get a chance to watch this week? Anything good? Anything
You
bad?
know, honestly, I unfortunately I have not been able to get much
Okay.
viewing in, quite honestly, but I will say that I was able to finally see a couple films that I hadn't gotten around to that everybody was
Nice.
pretty much talking about. So,
Mhm.
I finally got to watch that Amazon Prime Roadhouse
Oh,
Oh,
Roadhouse
okay.
remake, which
Nice.
yeah, I don't think anything's going to top the original,
Yeah.
but this one is it's so trashy and wonderful that I couldn't help but really enjoy it. Like what they've essentially done is Doug Liman, the director of like Go and Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
Hmm.
it's a remake, but it's really more, I would say, a reimagining,
Yeah.
but it's basically refashioned as a modern Western slash just duke 'em out MMA
Mhm.
kind of ridiculous actioner. And Conor McGregor is in it.
Yeah.
He's also naked in the beginning,
oh,
which was yeah, it's a nice draw, actually, I'm gonna say. Um, but the action is incredible. So I
Yeah.
follow the stunt coordinator Garrett Warren, and he has a friend of his who's also a stunt man, a stunt coordinator, Steve Brown. You might have
Okay.
seen Brown on there was like a stuntman commercial for, I want to say it's either Buick or maybe some other car company. But this guy, Steve Brown, he was like a collegiate wrestler, very
Mm.
well known, and he just makes the most innovative like fight clips. So if you go on Steve Brown Wrestler Instagram and you just watch the clips that he and Garrett put
Mhm.
together, they are absolutely incredible. And you see some of this amazing fighting in Roadhouse, and it's so great. I know people complained that there is a little bit of a CGI portion to the fighting because
Yeah.
when they throw their punches, they have to miss, right? They're good stuntmen, but they have to miss. And what they did was they CGI'd the actual hit.
Mm.
Um, and
Huh.
so instead of that weird little, sometimes filmmakers will take a frame out to make the hit more impactful.
Mhm.
Instead of a frame out, they add a frame of the actual contact. So it's a little interesting. It pulled
Yeah.
me out a little bit, but then you get used to it. But it's apparently they announced a sequel, and so I can't wait. I think I don't know. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be absolutely great. I did catch Abigail, in not recently, but that was probably
Yeah.
like one of the last movies I saw in the theater, and that also features Kevin Durand, who was in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which we covered on Watch Skip Plus. And Abigail is from the Ready or Not guys, the Radio Silence guys, who Bingo, Adam Wingard had actually filmed a segment on VHS with in the movie VHS with Adam Wingard. Um, and they had passed on the next Scream sequel, and this was their next film. But I
Mhm.
really loved Abigail. I thought that the trailers basically gave everything away, but it doesn't. There's still a lot that's left in there
Yeah,
that's
that's what
very
I was worried about
fresh.
initially too. When I saw the trailers, I
Yeah,
was like, "Why did you do this? You're killing me." But you're right. There's a lot more
I
to it.
know. A lot
Yeah.
more to it. It's also really gory. Um, I would say it seems smart in its writing. I
Yeah.
may have to go back and look at that. They do depend a lot on Melissa Barrera's character, just being very intelligent and seeing certain things, and then you
Mhm.
come to realize, oh, her background and who she really is. This is why. But it was great, and I'm just gonna, without spoiling it, I'm just gonna say that I'm I'm lumping it in the unofficial dark universe with The Mummy, Dracula Untold, Renfield, The
Mhm.
Invisible Man. So I'm sort of lumping it in there with all of those, which is great. Um, and then I think there's one other movie that I ended up catching.
I'm just disappointed you didn't bring up our dreamboat Dan Stevens. He was great in Abigail.
Oh yes, Dan
Oh
Stevens was
yeah.
really, really good in that film. I mean, he was, I guess I'm after especially Godzilla versus Kong. I didn't know what to expect, and he plays a really good, like greasy, gross kind of guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Delightfully scuzzy is how I described him to a friend.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Delightfully scuzzy. There is one other movie, and I just want to make sure I can remember what it is. Um, Let me
That's
see.
half the battle sometimes.
Anybody catch that Roadhouse? Did you guys see
No,
that?
I
I
didn't.
saw it.
What did you
You
think?
did?
As I
What'd
haven't
you
seen it
think?
yet, so I'm curious if it's too.
I I mean, obviously, I don't think it's ever going to live up to the original, but on the same token, I'm not like some of these people who are just like, I fucking hate it. It's the biggest piece of shit since, blah, 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 blah. I think there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. I heard at one point, Conor McGregor, he was being told by, well, I can't think of the lead, Gyllenhaal, that, like, you got to be careful. We're staging the fight so you can't actually hit me. Because I heard that
Yeah.
he kept on
Yes.
accidentally hitting him.
Ooh,
Like that's
not
what I
good.
hear. Stuff like that. I mean, it's over the top and crazy, and like Jose said, it is a little bit of a reimagining to a degree. Like you said, it's kind of like more of a western almost. Overall, I had a fun time with it. I mean, I don't know if I would have went out of my way to like pay $15 to go see it at the movie theaters, but I enjoyed it, and I look forward to the sequel. I think overall, good times to be had.
I will say,
Yeah.
well, I haven't seen the movie yet. I have seen some of the Conor McGregor clips, and they do seem fun. Like him just going, "All right, where the fuck is everybody?" Like, I
Yeah,
may not have seen the movie, but that scene I saw, and it's been stuck in my head. So I'll probably eventually see it, just because that's kind of sold me. And I like Gyllenhaal, so I
yeah.
mean, that alone kind of made me go, "Well, that's an interesting approach to have him in that." So
I think they
Yeah,
kind of knew what they were doing when they hired McGregor too. Like I feel like you kind of know the guy's a clown in real life,
Mhm.
and you kind of know like he's probably not going to have much acting ability. It's kind of like it's almost like this exaggerated version of himself. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, and they just kind of like went with it. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
And
Because
the
like I'm not like
original,
what's that?
I was gonna say, and the original is over the top as well. So if you're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
like put
So
him in a movie, like Roadhouse does seem like the perfect fit. Like,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean I'm not
it's
big on
interesting that people were very much like, oh, I'm so precious, don't touch like Roadhouse,
yeah,
and the tone is all off. But
yeah,
that was a cheesy action picture to begin
yeah.
with.
mhm.
You know,
Like
That's
Tango
why
and
it's so
Cash.
fun.
You're not getting Shakespeare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
these expectations. We're not talking about Citizen Kane here, guys.
Though now that I keep saying over the top, I kind of want to see Doug Lyman reimagine over the top.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
exactly. I think that I think that's rife for a remake, right?
Oh, I
Um,
love.
so the other, honestly, the only other thing I've really just been working through is, um, I'm on episode like 305 of Dark Shadows. So
You're still doing it. I love
That's a
it.
I'm
commitment
still
right there.
doing it.
Episode 305. Shit.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
many? And
it's
that's probably still not touching upon like how many total episodes they had because that thing ran for years, didn't it?
I think it's something like, I want to say 1196
Woo!
or something like that. So yeah,
You're
but
not even close to the
I'm not
end.
even close, but like I'm obsessed with it, and now it's in color, so it's absolutely
Nice.
amazing. I love it. But
So
yeah, that's my comfort show. If I'm like really stressed out, I'm like, fuck this, I'm just gonna watch Dark Shadows. They're 20-minute episodes because it was like a
yeah.
half-hour daily soap opera.
Mm.
But yeah, I love it.
Listen, you got to have those comfort foods, man. Like those things are great. Now, I'm just curious, like the Tim Burton thing, is it even remotely like did they capture anything of the original series when they did the remake with the movie with Johnny Depp?
So
It was a completely like totally different direction,
so it has characters from it, but I think it's more like, it's
like a
like,
parody or
yeah. So if you think
yeah,
about like what they did with Brady Bunch or Chips
yeah.
in those movies, that's kind
Mhm.
of what they did with this, because this
Oh,
one,
okay.
it's very serious and very supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. I would encourage anyone to start watching it, but yeah, it's like 1196 episodes. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a commitment and a half right there. That's awesome. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to check it out. I think it's on Tubi, maybe. I want to say it's on Tubi or one of those something.
Freevee. You
Oh,
can
Freebie.
access,
Okay,
yeah. Freevee, you
very
can
cool.
access it on Prime or whatever, but yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I'll get into what I watched. Like yourself, I also didn't. I only watched a couple things because I've been doing this, and then I'm getting ready for an episode I'm going to be recording later on tonight with Brad and Troy. So between the two, I'm like, there's just so much going on. But
Oh,
I
you're gonna be
watched.
on Not a Bomb. Can you talk about what you're talking about? Or is
Well,
that
they're going
to
to be
be a
on my.
surprise?
They're going to be on my show.
Oh,
I'm doing the second
ah,
episode. I'm doing the Crying Freeman movie from the '90s with Mark Dacascos.
Oh,
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
so
That's a good one.
I love it. I'm a big
Yeah,
anime manga fan, so I fell in love with the manga back in the day.
me
And I
too.
know, I know, Troy's big into he's the Hong Kong action guy, so I had to have a conversation with him about that. Um, since we're talking about spy movies, I went back and did a rewatch because it was on Tubi. If Looks Could Kill with Richard
Mm,
Grieco.
okay.
I mean, it has a great cast. You got Richard Grieco. You got Roger Rees playing Augustus Steranko, the big, ridiculous, over-the-top villain. And you have a young Gabrielle Anwar. So
yeah.
you can't go wrong. And basically, I'm sure you guys have all seen this one before, but you have this slacker high school kid who's about to fail out of high school, and they say, oh well, if you go on this class trip to France, we'll let you consider that as your passing the class, and you're good to go. And of course, a case of mistaken identity happens, and he gets identified mistakenly for a British agent. And the next thing you know, he's involved in this big spy thing where he has to essentially pull off this Mission Impossible when he's really just some smart mouth, high school kid. Um, I haven't seen it in years. It's a lot of fun. I'm surprised the movie didn't do better. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but it's a lot more fun than you would think. And I'm actually kind of surprised Grieco didn't go on to a bigger career because
Yeah.
I feel like he has a lot of charisma. I mean, obviously he did 21 Jump Street back in the day. He did a movie called Mobsters in '91, and he pops up here and there. But I've always felt like he always deserved a bigger career. Same thing with Gabriel Anwar. She's an amazingly talented actress. She's done stuff like Scent of a Woman and Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, and of course Burn Notice and stuff like that. But she's another one of those ones that I kind of had hoped for, she'd go on to bigger things, and it never quite happened. But yeah, I had an absolute blast going back and watching that. And then I found in the library, my library sells used DVDs and stuff, and I found one of these multi packs, and one of the movies on there was a movie that I'd never seen before, and it's got a killer cast. You got Ben Affleck, you've got Sam Rockwell, French
Ooh.
Stewart, Alyssa Milano, John
Ooh.
Rhys Davies,
I
and you get brief cameos from Matthew McConaughey, Matt Damon, Brendan Fraser, and Leah Remini, and it's a movie called Glory Days.
I was about to say, I think I know this movie because I think I
Yeah.
found this at like a Goodwill years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing spectacular, but it's a pretty fun movie. It's basically a bunch of college kids. They're about to graduate in a week. They're all going through different things. One guy's got the girlfriend. He's going to move out of state, and he's making the big commitment. Ben Affleck is playing our main character, whose girlfriend broke up with him, and he's kind of going through a crisis. They're all going through their own shit, and they're about to graduate. And Ben Affleck's like, you know what? Fuck that. We're gonna stay in and live here for another year. We'll put off the real world for another year, and we'll keep on our partying and acting like idiots and just being stupid and having fun. And of course, that's the idea. And of course, it never really ends up being that way because they all realize at the end they all have to just get on with their lives and move forward and do stuff. But it's a really fun movie. And like I said, it's one of those ones that probably doesn't get talked about too much. But I think it's definitely worth a look. And if you like punk rock music like I do, you got a lot of stuff from the '90s like Bad Religion, bands like NOFX, Bouncing Souls, The Vandals, stuff like that. So you get a lot of like punk and ska music in there. Definitely a fun movie. And like I said, I didn't even know Sam Rocco was working that early. If you look at him, he looks like a baby. The guy's like
Yeah.
56 years old.
The only
Um,
other movies I can think that I kind of spotted him in before that was there was a college slasher called Pledge Night, which he's briefly in. And
oh,
then he
okay.
was in, I think it was Clown House, which is the infamous
That's
movie
the
that was
one.
directed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we won't even say his name. Well, we won't give
yeah.
him that acknowledgement. But that's the only two things I think I can remember. I think Glory Days might be one of his first like bigger type roles before, because it wouldn't be till like the mid to late '90s he'd really start popping up and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'll be completely honest. The first time I really noticed him was when he was in The Green Mile.
Okay,
That was the
yeah.
first one
Oh,
that I
okay.
really like. That I and in that role it was a small role, but he really brought it. And then of course the first Clooney movie, was it Confessions of a Dangerous Mind? I want to say,
Yeah.
where he plays it.
Yes.
Yeah, and those are the two movies that really like brought him to my attention. And then of course he does all these crazy wacky roles. I mean, I still think Galaxy Quest is probably, he's here. We got this Oscar-winning actor, but I still think that's probably my favorite one. But he's such a great actor. But everybody's really good in this. Even
I
Matthew
re
McConaughey, he has
I
like
was gonna say,
literally a 30-second role.
oh, I was gonna say I also remember Sam Rockwell from he was like one of the employed drug dealers in Light Sleeper, Paul
Oh,
Schrader. Yeah, but he's in it literally for like 2 minutes. And then it was that movie and Lawn Dogs, directed by John Doigan, that I remember Sam Rockwell in. But
Was he also in, and I didn't discover it till like years later when I knew of him, but I think there was a movie around late '90s called Safe Men. It was like him, Paul Giamatti, a young Mark
yeah, I
Ruffalo,
think so. Yeah,
and
yeah,
Michael Lerner. I think Rockwell was in that one as well.
yeah.
I
I
think he
think
was one of
so.
like the
uh
safe crackers.
I want to say so.
yes, indeed. Safe Men, 1998. You
Yeah.
go, Justin.
Yeah, it's a cute
Way
little
to
one.
go,
It's not
Red.
great, but that was one of those. I think I saw that when like Netflix was still in its streaming infancy. So
Oh,
Mm.
you get like your kind of big movie, but then they would just stockpile it with stuff from like '70s, '80s, and '90s. I kind of miss that. I mean, Amazon's kind of become that, thankfully, but there was a
yeah.
time where like you can see some cool genre stuff on Netflix before they started investing, and now they're just showing big movies.
Netflix
Yeah.
like is weird because every once in a while I'll stumble upon something really amazing, but I feel like they're just not, and maybe it's just my own ignorance. I feel like they're not delivering the kind of content that I used to get from
Yeah.
Netflix. Like I feel
Yeah.
like
Well, it's all
I'm
TV
missing
shows
part of that
now.
magic.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
it's
mean,
TV shows and their original movies, so you don't. It's almost in an ironic way, kind of become the blockbuster of streaming. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the
We should
last great
probably.
thing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you. No, you.
No, I was just going to say we should probably say that the guy who wrote and directed this film, Glory Days, he
Yeah.
also went on to write Airheads,
I
Triple
love.
X with Vin Diesel, and then The Dirt, which was that series about Motley Crue.
I love
Oh,
me some Airheads. Airheads is fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's great. Absolutely. And I
it's
completely
good.
forgot what I was going to say, so it can't be that important.
Oh no.
My brain, this is what happens. My brain stops working. Not nearly enough caffeine today. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, no, I mean it was a fun watch, definitely. So I guess that covers what everybody watched. I guess I will turn things over to you, Jose, our resident expert. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about the crew?
Sure. So Condorman is such an odd Disney movie.
It is.
It actually so it came out in 1981 and I want to say hold on because I actually pulled it up. These are the films that sort of were released like around when this came out, a little before and a little bit after. So we've got films like The Great Muppet Caper, The French Lieutenant's Woman with Meryl Streep,
Mm,
Neighbors, Wolfen, Cutter's Way, you know, um, Graduation Day, Saturday the 14th, Diva, and then we've got Condorman, which is really weird. And then after that, we would see films in 1981 like Prince of the City, Catherine
mm,
Bigelow's debut, The Loveless, Sharky's Machine, Heartbeeps. So it's very odd that in 1981 this was a film that came out, right? And we should also say that earlier in that year we got things like Nighthawks, Tarzan the Ape Man, Ms. 45, Outland, Looker from Michael Crichton. So it was an interesting year. And
yeah.
then we get this film. Let me start with the music. The music is by Henry Mancini. Obviously, I think we all know Mancini from the Pink Panther soundtracks,
Mm,
which is sort of interesting because this movie feels a little bit like the Pink Panther meets James Bond. But Mancini has 4 Oscars and 20 Grammys. His first Grammy was for the album Peter Gunn. If you guys
mm,
know that tune, which I can probably think is in everybody's head right now, or maybe not. But he also scored Touch of Evil, Breakfast at Tiffany's, um, Bachelor in Paradise, Charade, and Arabesque, just to name a few. Our DP is Charles F. Wheeler, probably best known for 1968's classic Yours, Mine, and Ours. He
mm,
also was the DP for 1972's Silent Running, which I believe was directed by VFX artist Doug Trumbull. He also shot One Little Indian with James Garner and Vera
nice.
Miles, and then the 1974 Red Badge of Courage TV adaptation starring Richard
Mm,
Thomas from Little House on the Prairie. Um, and then Mr. Wheeler became a Disney guy. So he was the DP for Freaky Friday, The Cat from Outer Space, Last Flight of Noah's Ark, 5 episodes of Magical World of Disney, and then a film, the first Hanna-Barbera live action film called Chomps. Do you guys remember this about the robot
oh,
dog?
I remember the name and seeing like the video cassette at the movie store, but I never actually saw the movie.
Yeah,
I
the guy
certainly
who
gotta go
starred
check
in
it out.
it. Did you see it as a kid, John?
Oh yes, I did. Yes, yeah, I did. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
watched it. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I thought you were talking to Justin. I'm sorry. My bad.
No,
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 no, it's fine.
I saw it. I never saw. I just saw the video cassette, but I never rented it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I think Chomp stands for like canine home protection system or something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, canine home modified protection system. Oddly enough, that starred one of the son from the Land of the Lost Hanna-Barbera TV series, Wesley Ure. Our producer is Jan Williams.
Mm,
He's a Disney guy, And these are the films that he produced: Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, the aforementioned The Cat from Outer Space, The London Connection, and then also The Last Flight of Noah's Ark, which was also directed by the director of this film. That film seems to be like a riff on Flight of the Phoenix. It's about a plane that has all these animals that crash lands on a desert island. And the pilot, played by Elliot Gould, this is weird how it's all coming back, right?
It's all coming back.
Coming back on itself, decides to turn the plane into like a sailboat.
Mm.
Hence the name. I have got to track this down and see
Yeah,
it.
so
It
do
just
I.
sounds
Yeah, it sounds pretty
completely
cool.
interesting, right? Our writer is Mark Sturtevant, and this is suggested by a novel called Game of X by a gentleman named Richard Sheckley. So Sheckley has written novels and short stories that have been turned into films, such as Escape from Hell Island,
Oh,
Dead
nice.
Run, The Prize of Peril, and his novel Immortality Incorporated became Free Jack, starring Emilio Estevez and Rene Russo.
Oh, okay.
Sturtevant is a DGA trainee, an assistant director, and a producer. Unfortunately, I think this movie might have killed his career because this and something prior to it, an episode of Beretta, are his only scripts that he's ever sold.
Ooh.
So,
Oh, man.
yeah. Now, interestingly enough, when we start talking about this movie, one of the uncredited writers on this is a gentleman named Mickey Rose. And Rose was the writer of many television shows and comedies. So things like The Sid Caesar Show, The Tim Conway Show, The Smothers Brothers Show. Are you sensing a trend? But he's also written multiple episodes for Love Boat and Charlie's Angels.
Oh,
So
okay.
I kind of get the sense that maybe they brought him in uncredited to punch up the script and make it funny, maybe. And that brings us to our director, Charles Jarrett. He's a British director, probably best known for his 60s and 70s films like Anne of the Thousand Days and Mary, Queen of Scots, both of which garnered their actors Oscar nominations. So Genevieve Bujold, Richard Burton in Anne, and then Mary, Queen of Scots, Vanessa Redgrave, who was also in The Devils. So maybe it's all going back, all coming back on itself, which is strange, right? He mainly started directing television shows, and he's probably best known for a lot of his television work, such as The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's the 1968 TV version with Jack Palance, which was produced by Dan Curtis, who created Dark Shadows. So again, here we go.
There you go. Another connection there.
And Jarrett is, again, probably best known for taking very popular novels and then adapting them either to TV, mostly to TV, and then some to movies. So we've got Sidney Sheldon's The Other Side of Midnight, a CIA thriller called The Amateur. He is also one of the first directors to give a young unknown actor a lead role. That actor was named, Justin.
Oh man, do I have to wait? Can we repeat it? Wait, what was the
No,
clue again? I was
just
listening,
saying,
but now I'm on the spot and I need to hear that clue again so I can guess.
well, just so I've been talking about all this and things have been coming back to things we've previously talked about. So Jarrett was one of the first to give a young unknown actor a lead role, and that actor was,
I'm an idiot. It's Nicolas Cage, of course.
That's right. So he directed The Boy in Blue, which is one of his one of Nick Cage's first films. And then, of course, again, adapting a Piers Paul Reed novel for television, A Married Man, Judith Krantz's Till We Meet Again. That actually starred Michael York, Bruce Boxleitner, Hugh Grant, Courtney Cox, and Mia Sara. I will need to track this down as well and see that. And then Russell Greenan's adaptation, The Secret Life of Algernon, starring Charles Durning and Carrie Ann Moss. So again, I'm going to need to track that down and watch that as well. So there's two other people below the line that I want to spotlight. One is animator Michael Cedeno. So we're going to get to the rather amusing opening credits when we start talking about this movie. Yeah, but Cedeno, if his work looks familiar, he's one of the cream of the crop over at Disney. But when he first started out, he actually joined Don Bluth, another Disney animator, who left Disney to create his own studio and films. So Cedeno was an animator on The Secret of Nim and An American Tale. Those are very famous Don Bluth animation films. Eventually, Cedino would return to Disney and he would be an animator for films like Rescuers Down Under, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Treasure Planet. And then he also animated specific characters like Belle, Aladdin, and adult Simba. And if you don't know who I'm referring to, you may need to brush up on Disney Plus. And then the
Adult
other person,
Simba kind of sounds like the X-rated version of
it
Lion
does,
King.
right? Right.
So what's
I
going
know
on
we
here?
have to differentiate, but referring to him as Adult Simba is actually a little weird.
The Lion King XL triple X. Anyway, and then the other person I want to note, and again, we'll get to this when we start talking about it, is famed French stunt coordinator and precision driving stunt driver Remy Julien. So he is an action coordinator for French and European films, probably best known because he was the stunt coordinator and Michael Caine's stunt double for the original The Italian Job. And
Oh, okay.
his stunt precision driving has been seen in the following Bond films: For Your Eyes Only, A View to Kill, The Living Daylights, License to Kill, Golden Eye. He's also done precision driving stunts for films like Frantic, Solar Babies, and Taxi 2. He has been a stuntman in films like Day of the Jackal, French Connection 2, Jackie Chan's Armor of God. He also was the stunt coordinator for Armor of God 2, Smiley's People, and then the two Van Damme films, Maximum Risk and Wake of Death. Very sadly, there was a stunt accident on Taxi 2, and Mr. Julian unfortunately was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. But otherwise, a very, very stellar career in terms of his precision driving. So that's our
Okay.
below the line.
Nice, very nice. As usual, an amazing job. Good work.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll go into the cast. We have Michael Crawford playing our main hero, Woody Wilkins. You could probably remember him from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. He did that in '66. He did a movie called Hello, Goodbye in 1970 and How I Won the War in '67. So these are just like a handful of things that he worked on. We have,
Do you know what he's most famous for?
oh, no, tell me. I just kind of
Condorman.
picked ones that well, probably Condorman. I picked
So,
ones that honestly I wasn't sure which because I hadn't heard a lot of his films on his resume, so I just kind of like these ones probably are ones that maybe people might know about.
So unfortunately, I think after Condorman, he didn't quite make it as like a big lead actor, maybe,
Yeah.
but he hooked up with Andrew Lloyd Webber because he also sings, and he played the Phantom, originated the role of the Phantom in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, on Broadway.
Very,
Okay.
and very famously, he got, I believe it was 7.5% of all of the ticket sales. All of the ticket sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. So needless to say, if Condorman put him in Hollywood movie hell, he made it
Yeah.
all up.
It,
Well,
it
good.
may have actually been
Phantom
better
of the
for him
Opera.
that maybe his Hollywood
Exactly.
career didn't work out because he
Exactly.
made some serious bank.
I know
Mm.
when I looked it up, I think they said Condorman cost 14 million and it lost about 9 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it definitely was not it was not the one of the big ticket winners for Disney. So unfortunately.
Nope. Not in the year of
Um,
1981 with those other
14
films.
million in
yeah, no, there
1981.
wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Luckily, it was only 14 million, but still, to lose 9 out
Yeah.
of that is like, oof. We have James Hampton next. He's playing Harry Oslo, and he's Woody's friend and also a CIA agent. And I know him most from Teen Wolf. That's where I think the
Yes.
comes. He was in Teen Wolf 1, and of course, he couldn't pass up that good Teen Wolf money for Teen Wolf 2.
Mhm.
So he was in both of those. Also, Teen Wolf cartoon. He
Yes.
was. I didn't even know there was a Teen Wolf cartoon. I don't know how I missed that one.
I
Uh,
loved it. I watched it all the
Public
time.
Lion. He
Yes.
was in the Cat from Outer Space, talking about the Cat from Outer Space. And he was also even on stuff like television, stuff like World's Greatest American Hero and stuff like that. He appeared on like the A Team on a couple episodes. So he's kind of been all over
I
the
know him
place.
from Days of Our Lives. He was on
Oh,
Days of Our Lives for a time. Yeah. Yeah,
oh, nice.
totally.
That's crazy.
That's like Dark Shadows, but with just regular people.
No
Exactly.
vampires. My mom used to drop us off at our grandmother's every once in a while. My grandmother was like this old Irish lady who used to chain smoke cigarettes. And my sister and I were like both super, super young. And she'd be like, "Oh, we're going to grandma's house." And the whole afternoon would be Days of Our Lives and the other 3 or 4 soap operas. We'd sit there and watch soap operas with
Mhm.
grandma. And that was a pivotal part of our childhood.
Yep, that was totally my thing. Hampton is such a TV character actor. Like he was
Yeah,
on everything when I was growing up. Like
yeah.
if you just IMDb his resume, you've probably seen one of those television shows that he was
Oh,
in.
yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And
Yeah.
and if I'm being
Um,
honest, he kind of reminded me a little bit of your husband, Jose.
Okay, so thank you for mentioning that because I used to call this my Bill Pullman sort of like love story, basically. So what I mean by
mm,
that is we all aspire to want to marry some hot looking celebrity, right?
mhm.
But the way that my love story always ended up was I would date somebody who looked like Bill Pullman, but quite honestly, the progenitor of it probably should have been Mr. Hampton. It should have been called the Mr. Hampton love story because I don't know, I fall for average looking guys that look like
Ah,
Bill Pullman or James Hampton. So there you go.
average but very handsome, I think.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But
That's
you know what?
awesome.
I was watching the film and I was like, I could totally marry this guy. Wait,
Yeah,
I think I
I
did.
was gonna say I got Scooter vibes
She's
throughout the
like,
whole
"Hang on,
movie.
Yes.
Hold on 1 second here, guys. All right. Next, we got Barbara Carrera, who's playing Natalia, the Russian agent trying to defect to the USA and a love interest to Woody. She's been in a bunch of stuff. The Master Gunfighter in '75,
Mm,
Island of Dr. Moreau in '77,
so good.
Lone Wolf and McQuaid in '83, Never Say Never Again. So she was a Bond girl. And then Loverboy in '89. I mean, she's been in a bunch of other stuff. I just kind of, gave you kind of a couple of handful of things that people might know. Um,
And I will just say, only in Hollywood would they hire a Nicaraguan woman to play a Russian. She also used to be a model. I mean, clearly she's beautiful. She's absolutely
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh no, absolutely. She definitely fills the role. We have Jean Pierre Calfort, which I probably horribly mispronounced. So I apologize, Mr. Calfort. He played Morovich. He was been in stuff like Funny Boy in '87, Day and Night in '97, Gamer in 2001,
Mm,
and an animated movie called The Rabbi's Cat, which came out in 2011. Yeah, so he has a little bit of this, a little bit of that going on, and then we have our main bad guy, Oliver Reed, Krokov,
Yeah.
and of
love
course,
Oliver Reed.
good old Oliver Reed, Gladiator, The Pit and the Pendulum, The House of Usher, The Brood, The Big Sleep, Tommy, of course, The Devils, Women in Love, Oliver, The Crimson Blade. I mean, what hasn't this guy been in? You know what I mean?
I know.
Um, so
Wait,
I got
could I just state some fun facts that I discovered
yeah.
about him from IMDb? By the way, after our episode of The Devils,
Uh,
um, I actually bought I don't think it's a biography. I'm sorry, I don't think it's an autobiography. It might be, but I went and bought an autobiography on Oliver Reed because
nice.
I was so fascinated by him and his acting choices in The Devils. But these are on IMDb, but these were just my favorites about him. First of all, Reed has no acting training or stage experience, which is
Mm,
kind of like just blows your mind, right? This says he has a tattoo, he had a tattoo on his penis. And according to actor Patrick Warburton, he played
uh,
Putty on Seinfeld. Reed showed him the tattoo the first day they worked together. Um,
that's always great,
he
right?
I mean, if you're gonna get a tattoo on your penis, you're not gonna be afraid to show it to people.
you're gonna have to show it to people, right? Um, he starred in the first film that featured the word fuck. This is 1967's I'll Never Forget What's His Name, or I'll Never Forget the F Word. Um,
I'll never fucking forget what's his name.
he also he also starred in the first British film that was rated X simply for violent content. So that doesn't include The Devils, which has a
Wow.
lot of weird imagery. But this film was called Sitting Target in 1972. And
Nice.
then this is probably the weirdest trivia item about him. And I quote, whoever wrote this on IMDb, he died of a heart attack in a bar after downing 3 bottles of Captain Morgan's Jamaica rum, 8 bottles of German beer, numerous doubles of famous grouse whiskey and Hennessy cognac, and beating 5 much younger Royal Navy sailors at arm wrestling. His final bar bill was 270 Maltese lira, which is about 450 pounds or $600.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I think it sounds like this would be Oliver Reed, but I swear it was around the time of Gladiator. Maybe Russell Crowe conveyed it, but they would be at the bar with Oliver Reed, and he would drink all this much, but they were like astounded that he never had to use the restroom. Well, apparently, I guess he would so he didn't have to leave like people and the drinks. He would wear Depends or have something like a funnel, basically, so he could
Oh my God.
urinate but not have to get up. And I'm pretty sure I couldn't remember if it was Oliver Reed, but you telling me that other story, I'm almost positive that it was probably Oliver Reed, because if it wasn't
That's
him,
insane.
another contemporary of his. But I for some reason remember somebody, if it wasn't Crow, but somebody else on the set of Gladiator saying that, because that would be one of it. Actually, I think that was his final film role, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
died on the off day. I think he had the day off. And I think I'm pretty sure
They,
that's
yeah, and they had to CGI his face into the remaining
yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they famously did not get along, Crow and Reed, for whatever reasons.
I think maybe just too much of a clashing, similar possible personalities, maybe being
Yeah.
Testosterone and alcohol.
yeah,
Definitely why.
bullheaded,
Yeah, and then very famously on the set of Ken Russell's Women in Love, I believe what happened was he was drinking at one bar, got so drunk, took all of his clothes off, and then walked like 5 blocks to the next bar, at which point he was arrested for indecent exposure.
Did he have the penis tattoo at that
Oh
point,
my
though?
God.
Or is that what maybe gave him the idea? It's like, if I'm gonna get arrested for indecent exposure, I might as well give them an extra show.
I will live with it, and I will tattoo it on my
Want to see my
penis.
tattoo while we're at it?
Did IMDb state what the tattoo was on his penis, other than just
No, but now I'm gonna read this digital copy of his biography that
I feel like a
That's good.
snake would make the most sense for a penis tattoo. I feel, especially
Yeah, you
Oliver
think,
Reed
right?
seems like a snake kind of guy.
I
Anyway,
mean, listen, if
maybe.
you were a guy with way too much money to spend and you wanted to have like a really horrible pickup line and be like, "Hey, how you doing? Want to see my tattoo?" Hold on a second.
Yes.
Zip. You know,
Maybe
really
it's the
bad
word.
line. But he
Maybe it's
doesn't
the
need to
word
do that. It's
fuck.
Oliver Reed.
oh, it could be the fuck. I was in the first movie that had this word.
Exactly. But God, I love Oliver Reed. He's my hero.
Yeah, not having stage experience blows my mind, because he seems like a
Yeah.
stage actor with how
Yeah.
verbose and grandiose he is. And I mean that in a loving way, because I love Oliver Reed.
Yeah,
But
no,
that blows my mind. I've always assumed he just came from the stage.
no, absolutely. And hold on, I have one more else. I have Dana Elcar, who played Russ Devlin, and you may know him from, or her, excuse me, from The Sting, The Last
It's a
Flight
boy.
of Noah's Ark, All of Me, Knight Rider. He's been on stuff like that, and A-Team and The Fall Guy, stuff like that. So,
Interesting that 2 Disney movies from 1981 had characters named Devlin.
yeah, seriously,
Yes.
right?
What a weird thing to have in 81.
You want to hear something even more weird?
Are you going to tell me Dean Devlin of Roland
Bring the
Emmerich and
weird
Dean
on,
Devlin
Jose.
fame has something to do with this?
No. So Dana Eckler, he's the bald agent, the bald supervising agent in this film. He was Sheriff Patterson on Dark Shadows.
Wow,
Okay.
look at that. Everything is coming
Another
full
time
circle
for
in the
shadows.
weirdest way.
In the
You're
weirdest
really
way.
getting our audience.
Absolutely.
You're really pushing that Dark Shadow song. The
I
audience.
know. I am pushing Dark Shadows. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. But
Well, I'll make you
I'm gonna
happy,
have to give it a
Jose.
try.
I did find, I think, House of Dark Shadows, one of the times where they would I think take episodes and make them into a movie. I found one of them on VHS. So
nice.
Oh,
there
nice.
you go.
Nice.
Very cool. So I think I covered. You're the fact guy here, Jose. I think I covered all of our main cast. I think I got everybody.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into the story, Justin?
Yeah. So Jose had said this is basically Pink Panther meets James Bond, and I think he's
Yeah,
correct because this is the
yeah.
ultimate pitch movie. So I figured, well, pitch movies, you always got to do it in like one frothy sentence, you know. So I did my best here. So one very exuberant sentence, if you will.
All right,
A
we'll take
comic
it.
a comic book artist turned CIA agent uses the alias of his famed superhero creation to save a ravishing Russian double agent from the clutches of her evil boss. I think that's Condorman in a nutshell.
And
Yeah, no,
alliteration. I love
Yeah.
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
Good
I had
job.
to do ravishing Russian. You can't call any Russian agent who is obviously a supermodel without the word ravishing in there.
No, you absolutely have to fit that in. And I think that pretty much does kind of like sum it up in a nutshell. I mean, let's face it, it's not, in my opinion, I guess I was just breaking the thoughts. I mean, it's not the kind of movie you're going to be like wowed by. But like I'll tell you what, I loved it as a kid. I still love it, and I think the reason I love it is because it is so goofy and it is so ridiculous and over the top. But it's also, you got this guy that's a cartoonist who's in love with this cartoon character so much so that he moves to France so that he can try to get in the headspace of the character more. And you know what I mean? And the next thing you know, he's caught up in this whole goofy spy ring, and it becomes almost like this parody to some degree of, like a James Bond film. And like I was talking to you, Justin, earlier. It's kind of like back in that time frame. If you love that kind of stuff, there wasn't a lot of stuff out at the time. You had the Superman movie in the late '70s, then you had the two crappy Superman sequels, like the third and fourth one, that were horrible. Um, and then you had to wait till like '89 for Batman before you had anything really substantial. If you were like a comic book nerd, or if you were someone that grew up wanting that superhero fix, that was. And then you have this goofy, like I said, character who's just a lot of fun. I mean, I think you have Oliver Reed playing this one-dimensional character, but he just plays it so well that even though it's a one-dimensional character, you still love it. You have like the Russian agent who he falls in love with, and again, very one-dimensional, but I feel like it's still, there's a charisma there. And then you have Michael Crawford who plays the character, and he sells the goofiness of this character, of this guy thrust into this world of becoming a spy. You know what I mean? And personifying the character that he created, and then getting lost in that world. And plus, you got some fun stunts. You got some cool car chases. You got the part where the van drops out, and you got the super cool superhero car. Um, I think there's a lot to love. Obviously there are some faults with the movie. I mean, if you go back and watch it as an adult now, you can kind of foresee through some of it, but it's all cheese. I think it's fun cheese, but I like the movie a lot. Surprisingly, I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it as much going back and revisiting it, but I still have a lot of love for it, surprisingly. Um, so that's sort of like kind of like my general thoughts on it. What were you guys? What did you think after revisiting it?
Yeah.
Justin, I'll let you go first.
Sure. Okay. So this surprisingly is not the first time I saw this. I did not see it as a kid because I was kid of the 90s. So by the 90s, nobody was talking about Condorman. Like you said,
Well, you got
Batman
to
had
move
come
on.
out. And
Yeah.
I think this was by that point, maybe an old shame of Disney's, especially if they lost 9 million on it.
Yeah.
How I stumbled upon it was the infancy of YouTube. So this would have been what, 2006, 2007. And back then when
Okay.
YouTube first started, you could only do 10 minutes. And on top of people trying to do their own little like comedy skits or whatever, people would just upload movies and wrestling
Yeah.
events and they would do it in 10 parts. So since comic book movies were big in the around that time, mid 2000s, you had your Spider-Man, your X-Men's, you would see a bunch of these. You would see Puma Man without the MST3K commentary on it. And
Mm.
somebody had uploaded in like 9 or 10 parts
Mhm.
Condorman. So I kind of stumbled upon it. And I remember kind of thinking at the time, I mean, I knew who Oliver Reed was, but everyone else was kind of new to me. But I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting because this is less a superhero movie and more of a spy thriller. And when you said Jose, and it's funny because I found the old Siskel and Ebert review where they had said, and they were not kind to this movie. The reason they didn't
Oh
like it
yeah.
was they felt that it was an outdated movie. And it does feel like something that Disney maybe had in the pipeline in the early 70s to parody or do a kids version of James Bond and Pink Panther
Yeah.
before that became more kid centric.
Mhm.
But then they also was like, well, Superman's huge, so let's also do something superhero related. So they kind of just mashed them together. And in a sense, it doesn't really work because the Condor Man doesn't really fit for the most part as the spy. But there's such a jovial charm to this movie between, Woody. I love the fact that even though he's making a comic book character, he wants one that's grounded. So the movie opens with a Pink Panther-esque cartoon of his Condorman
Yeah.
creation, zipping and flying through Paris. And then we find out that's him just trying to do it because I'm not going to have my Condorman character fly on these makeshift wings if I can't do it for real, which is just
Yeah.
so ludicrous, but in the most charming of ways. And then his friend wants him to deliver a note, but of course, then he ends up getting involved. And then, like you said, you have that great scene with I don't know if it was supposed to be a Corvette, the Condor Corvette, maybe. They never
Yeah.
really gave it a name, but I like the fact that it shoots all these guns and flamethrowers like you'd see in a Bond film. And like it's like GPS, old school, like inter-computer mapping is like a ColecoVision or in television. It
Yeah.
kind of hits enough notes. Like it's no great shakes. And I feel like if you've seen a Pink Panther movie, especially, you could argue those would do this better. But
Mm.
there's something about it, especially watching it now when we've gotten all of these superhero movies, whether you love them or not, where this one does kind of stand as an outlier of, okay, it's a superhero movie, but it's really just a spy caper with a little bit of superhero flair thrown in. And then you've got
Mm.
Oliver Reed just, for him, he probably in his mind was phoning it in, but even him
Oh yeah.
phoning it in is still chewing the scenery and is fun. Like the first time he hears of the Condor Man, I've been saying it to myself for days, and like this flabbergasted hush, he just goes, Condor Man? Like he can't grasp this idea of Condor Man. And then later, like when he figures it out, like because he's like, oh, wait a minute, it's just this guy who makes a comic books and all of his plans are just out of his comics. So he has a whole stack of comic books and I just have this image of Oliver Reed reading comic books, like he's getting upset at like the antics in Archie, like, damn it, Jughead, you're just eating everything. You're not even drinking. Betty or Veronica, be a man, Archie. Just do them both, Like it's just it's charming.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not great, but it's funny to have watched the Devil and Max Devlin like a few days prior before getting to
yeah.
Condor Man because they came out in the same year, but where Devil and Max Devlin lacked was in having enthusiasm, a charm that you had seen in movies like That
Mm.
Darn Cat or Love Bug or Shaggy Dog. Like, yeah, these gimmick movies, but they may not be great, but they have this like innocent charm to them. And this still had that. And I think because I never really got to those as a kid. I mean, saw
Mm.
some of the Love Bug movies, but that was it. It's kind of actually refreshing to go back as an adult because I always thought, well, if I try watching these now, they're probably eye roll inducing. And I'm like, the only ones that I think I wasn't fond of, it's like even if they had a cute gimmick, like I think it was the Barefoot Executive, it wasn't as charming as you'd expect. But then you had the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, which it lives up to its goofiness and has this charm. And That Darn Cat is like really adorable. And I think Condor Man fits there. It's
Yeah.
very predictable and it's nothing you wouldn't have seen by that point in these type of spy thrillers, but it's done with such enthusiasm that it's infectious. It's kind of hard not to just fall in love with this, even if nothing really stands out as too spectacular.
It reminds me, well, it gives me two things will come to mind. First of all, I'd love to see it reimagined as a
Mhm.
movie
Yes.
today
Yes,
because I think
100%.
I think what I would do is I think I would give it like a rated R and push the comedy aspect because I think our generation would connect with that. And I think the silliness, but just go with it. And then two, it was kind of like that. I fell in love with this the same way I fell in love with, and again, not a perfect thing, but you guys probably have seen, at least you, Jose Pop, perhaps, The Greatest American Hero. When that came
Yeah.
on, same thing where you have this like goofy character, a guy that lost his book on how to use his superpowers, and he's crashing, and he has this catchy theme song, and it's kind of cheesy, and he's working with this guy from the CIA, and it has that same thing. You can't help fall in love with it, despite all the flaws and all the goofiness of what you're watching. That's what it kind of has that vibe. That's what I really kind of connected to. So, well,
I'm surprised
uh,
somebody hasn't tried to reimagine it. I mean,
yeah,
this would be like even if they did like a Disney Plus show with like
yeah,
a teenager
Mhm.
trying to do this, I think it would be I don't know, it would be brilliant. I think this is one of Disney's back catalog. Um now that I've seen it, I think like this and the Black Hole should be like prioritized as being
Oh,
Yes.
definitely.
remade
I'm
or
really
or
surprised they haven't
reimagined.
tried doing Black Hole again,
Oh,
just because. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that I think that one must have been a bomb, but still, like the concept. And I like the Black Hole. I didn't see it as a kid. I saw it like a couple
Yeah.
years ago, and I actually think that's really fascinating. It's a fun, uh, different for Disney at the time. But yeah, that
yeah.
one blows my mind. Like even with Tron, like they keep bringing that back, and I'm like, I'm surprised
Yeah.
you didn't
Where's
try
my
doing.
black hole?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
well, Jose, it's back in college, probably.
Oh my God.
This is the R-rated content you wanted in your Condorman reboot. You gotta say it like that,
Yes,
Condorman.
exactly. Condorman.
So Jose,
Um,
what are your thoughts now that we'll
yeah, so I actually had not seen this
Oh,
before. I had
oh.
not. I knew it existed though because I had actually as a kid I religiously watched Siskel and Ebert. And I remember seeing the preview and begging my mom to go see it. And
Mm,
unfortunately we didn't get out to the theater, but I just remember the little clips that they showed. I don't remember
yeah.
whether they loved it or not,
They did
although
not.
Justin just said
They
that they
did
did
not like it.
not, right? Um, but I do remember the scene that they had shown was they were in that big trashy van, the
Mm,
what he calls the gypsy van. Um, not very PC, but and then they crash out of it in that sort of like newfangled car, and Carrera is like fantastic or whatever. And I just was like entranced by that, but I'd never seen it. But
yeah.
seeing it now, it's interesting. I was sort of ready for it to be geared up as like a superhero movie. I didn't even read the summary. I just wanted to like jump in and watch it. But what it
Mm,
reminded me of was actually it's kind of curious that John, you ended up watching If Looks Could Kill, which is sort of
mm,
like there was another film called Gotcha with
yeah.
Anthony Edwards and Linda Fiorentino, which was sort of the same thing.
Mhm,
And along those lines, this movie reminded me of I don't think anybody really remembers this film, but it's called
mm,
American Dreamer, starring there's a part of me that wants to say it stars Tom Conti, but I
mm,
think he's a music composer. But anyway,
okay.
the film was called American Dreamer, and it was about a guy almost like the man with one red shoe who's mistaken for a spy in some ways. And
Oh,
so
okay.
this movie has that kind of element to it. And by the same token, in American Dreamer, he sort of like bumbles his way through this mistaken identity thing.
Mm,
Not so much in a Pink Panther way, but very
mm,
much in a, goofy kind of like, what am I doing sort of thing.
mm,
And the other thing that this film reminded me of was, again, a long lost, forgotten television show. But there are, I guess, in a bid for ABC to sort of recapitalize on Mission Impossible, which I think
mm,
aired on ABC, there was a TV show called Masquerade that I was absolutely obsessed with. And what it was there was a core team of like CIA operatives,
mm,
and what they would do is they would pick civilians and then they
mm.
would put them into their sort of like CIA operations. So what was
Oh,
really fun about that show was, again, it was very Mission Impossible, but their guests would be sort of like these rotating people who would be thrown into these espionage situations. So when
mm,
I'm watching this, I'm thinking about American Dreamer. I'm thinking about like Masquerade, because
mm,
here we've got this, goofy comic book artist who's obviously taking himself way too seriously. So, like Justin said, he's like, I don't want to do anything that my own character wouldn't do. It's like, dude, comic books are done because you can do things in comic books you can't do in real life. So the fact that you want to like reverse that trend is really bizarre. Um, and then of course, watching him, fail in his first attempt with these wings, which you can obviously tell he's suspended by one wire, right?
Yeah.
He's barely flapping anything. And then even when it breaks and he drops in there, it's clearly he's being lowered into the water. It's like, I'm like, Remy Julian, did you not say to the stunt guy, keep flapping your wings or doing some
Uh,
crazy shit?
yeah,
But
Cisco and Ebert called that out too, but like they used it as a criticism because they thought it's supposed to be this big budget thing, which it was. But for me, I almost felt like maybe it's just now seeing it from today's lens. I'm like, I almost thought that was like supposed to be the joke,
yes,
that you can
exactly.
see everything.
Very lo-fi, right? Um, And so he plays this like comic book artist, and then he's got his friend who he doesn't know is part of like this the CIA or whatever this spy agency is. And then he gets the opportunity to sort of like put his friend in there, and then that's where all the shenanigans sort of come forth. And then you know then he starts getting mistaken as this Condorman, and then even his friend's boss is like, "We'll get this Condorman to do it," or what have you. And then there's goofy disguises and everything. So I mean, I kind of loved its cheesiness. I also
Yeah.
love the fact that it had these like kind of high octane stunts going on. I mean, there's like lasers, pew pew pew, and there's like speedboats, and then there's like Porsches running everywhere with precision driving. It also made me wonder, I'm like, this is a Disney movie, and like things are blowing up and cars are crashing, like flying off of cliffs. And I'm like, did anybody think this is maybe
Yeah.
not family appropriate? But whatever. I
But
dug it.
but what's weird is the same year, even though it's a PG-rated family comedy, Devil and Max Devlin comes out, which has a
Yeah.
pretty decent
Devil.
actual depiction of hell and the devil. There's
Yeah.
go-go dancers. There's like it's tame, sure, or tamed down, but it's still adult material. So I think like maybe even with the Black Hole, which was not tame by today's standards, but for Disney was a little darker. I mean, they would also
Yeah.
experiment when they're animated with the Black Cauldron. I think they were trying
Yes.
to, and they did, what was it? Something Wicked This Way Comes was around this time, and The
Yep.
Watcher in the Woods. So I think they
Oh,
were
yeah.
trying in like the early 80s
They were
to
trying to
shed
cross
that image.
genres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they were not doing well at that point, and it wasn't until like later on in the decade that they got that animated renaissance, and then they're like, okay, we're back to being the Disney that's very safe in
Yeah, I
forever.
remember the Black Cauldron when that came out. I mean, I liked that movie a lot, but I remember that animated film that didn't do well either, and that was
Mhm.
also like considered like a darker animated film. It probably
Well,
wasn't until
it
what, like
was I think it was one
Little
of the
Mermaid.
first to be PG as well,
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
of the nightmarish, like the skeleton soldiers.
yeah,
And it's funny, almost all these films, including Condorman that we've mentioned, I think they were a little too controversial for
Mhm.
Disney, because the critics were like, "This is not a family thing. This is not the barefoot executive with a monkey, right?
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
not Ken Russell. Jesus, it's not Kurt Russell with a monkey.
Ken
Ken Russell
Russell.
with a monkey. I don't think I want to see."
Yeah. Ken Russell's The Devils and Max Devlin. There's a movie.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Um, but what's interesting is Justin, you had said that it had like an energy to it, and strangely, I felt like it was maybe a little devoid of energy, and I don't know what was missing, because certainly the actors are game and the stunts are, whatever. And I think for me anyway, I think
Yeah,
it all came off maybe superficially, almost like a comic book in some ways.
yeah,
Like the panels, like you don't get music with the panels, you don't get like all of that stuff. It felt a little devoid of energy. And um Crawford, I mean, sure, he's got energy to burn, but like that kind of cocaine energy. But it felt oddly superficial, but
yeah.
I loved the movie. It's so breezy and so quick, and you're right, Oliver Reed is just a treat. He's the bear, which
And
which
like
I
literally
love
that
that they
part where he's
called
like
him the
the
bear.
boat chasing the end and he's jumping out of the ship. The other guy, the way he, like his outrage is when you see him
Oh, yeah.
like lose shit.
He is
Yeah,
a writer of comic books.
right.
It's just so
I
good.
love it. He's like he has outdone us by comic books that could be garnered by young children with a coin, whatever. Like he's just turning all of that into Shakespeare. I wonder if he
Yeah,
was like drunk most of the time. I don't
No
know.
he
way he
probably was.
wasn't. 1000% he was. And honestly, it's probably not because he was upset to have to do something like Condorman. It's just that's his nature. Like,
That was
Yeah,
paying for his booze for the week. Are you kidding me? I mean,
I know.
I still can't get over that story you told me about the thing about fucking how much booze that he drank. I
yeah.
had heard a version of that story on Gladiator, but that much booze. If the guy was 61 years old, he potentially could have lived a lot longer.
Yeah,
61 is
I
not that
know.
you know,
old.
It's
But
one
that
of
much
those.
booze, no wonder why he fucking died.
It's one of those
Had a heart
things where
attack,
it's
right?
you think of someone like
Yeah,
Lemmy from Motorhead or even Ozzy
yeah,
Osbourne, but especially Lemmy,
yeah,
it's like it's astounding they made it as long as they did, and it's almost like
yeah,
I think the only reason they did was their bodies got so used to that I don't know if
yeah,
Lemmy ever tried to stop, but like sometimes it's like I wonder if like stopping is actually going to kill you because your body's not going to know what it's like to detox from this much
Yeah.
like
no,
alcohol. Because I know Lemmy was the same way. Everyone was like, dude, we thought you would have died like 20 years ago. And you
Right.
still died, I think around the same age, like 60 something.
yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
can you think if like Oliver Reed had done like an RDJ and had gotten, like Robert Downey Jr. and
mhm.
had gotten sober and
Oh
then
yeah,
man.
really poured that creative energy, like there could have been an Oliver Reed renaissance, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I actually kind of love this. I'm a little mad it's not on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Same
do
thing.
love that opening, the animated opening. I think it's great. And the other thing I wanted to say was that there's like a late in the game twist about everything, about the
Yeah,
nature of Condorman and her and the defecting and all of that. There's a last minute twist, but there was a there's a really wonderful sort of like trick of the screenplay where she gives him a code to say that
mm,
like I'm with you, let's be
mm,
together.
mm,
um which is sort of like a similar thing that Luca Guadagnino did in like Challengers, if you saw that movie. So it's
mm,
nice to see that device carries over in scripts and it can still
mm,
work. But towards the end of the film, the three of them, so I'm talking about Hampton, Carrera, and Crawford,
mm,
they're just having so much fun that when the movie ends on its sort of cliffhanger sequely
yeah,
kind of like scene, I was really disappointed I couldn't dial up a Condor Man 2 and
yeah.
watch it,
Absolutely.
because I was just like, oh, let's see the next one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I loved it. Thank you for making me watch it finally.
Oh, get
So
out of here!
yeah,
Of course,
it's
man.
good.
I knew I had an opportunity to talk about Oliver Reed again. You were the man since you were there for the Devils. So I'm glad you could make it back. And of course, I wanted to have Justin on forever. So it's great to have. I figured to have you both on at the same time. So why not?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad I got to revisit this because I don't know. I mean, I eventually think I would have, but
Yeah,
it's sad. I mean, I guess I know why it doesn't have anything past DVD because I
yeah,
something wicked this way comes also never got past DVD, and I think it's just Disney doesn't see much investment in it. But it's one of those like at least throw up a good copy on Disney Plus. I mean, like this is
yeah.
what before the MCU there was Condor Man. Like you're telling me you can't. I get why
I'm
Devil and
surprised.
Max Devlin isn't on there, but
Yeah,
there's no reason that this can't just be because I mean the copy on Amazon, I ended up just buying it because it was on sale for like $9. But
yeah. That's
it's
what I
just
got mine.
it's
It's a
clearly
standard definition.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
clearly from the VHS because it even opens with like the VHS, like this film has been modified, and it
Yep.
yeah,
didn't look. Actually, it looked better than I thought it was going to be blown up on my projector because I was like, man, maybe I
yeah,
should go get it on the TV. But yeah, I'm like, you're going to tell me you can't even this standard version you couldn't put on your Disney Plus, and you could get a decent little
yeah.
Blu-ray out of this. I think this one you can get, some people invested, and I mean, I was looking up Condor Man online, and somebody made a Condor Man costume for like a Comic Con a couple of years ago. So
Oh
there's
yeah, that's
there's
Wow.
a very niche maybe, but there's a fan base there that I think would have a little bit of nostalgia or affection for this, even if they just now came to it.
well,
I'm
it's
going
one
to
of those
email
things.
Disney with a
That's
link
it.
to this show,
Yeah.
and I'm going to
That's it.
say, you need to listen to this because we have essentially pitched you the remake or reimagining of Condor Man, and then two, release it on Blu-ray because we
Yeah.
need it, along with The Black Hole and uh Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah.
So Disney actually, I joined at one point. They have, and I once you fulfill your obligation, you get out. They have like a club where you get like six, discs, and then you're obligated to buy like three over a certain amount of
Yeah.
years. The only reason I joined that is because they have certain Disney movies that are exclusive that you can only join if you join the club. So
Mm,
like I got like the Black Hole, that was a Disney exclusive when they released that on Blu-ray. Not the Black Hole, the Black Cauldron when that was
Cauldron.
released on Blu-ray. And there are a couple other films that they released exclusively on Blu-ray that you can only get to the club. Sadly, the club ended. But this is one of
Oh,
those ones that they should have. This would have been a perfect one, remastered. Even if you just release it on that, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Something.
yeah,
Something's better
totally.
than nothing. But
Yeah.
Also, they did have Condorman. He appeared in one of the Pixar short films. I don't know which one it was,
Oh,
but
Really?
if you Google it, they make a joke. There's a Pixar short film, and I guess there's a scene where they're talking about like the cast off heroes that never got a fair chance. And apparently the character shows up in like some sort of CJ for like 10 seconds, blink and you'll miss it kind of scene.
Yeah,
Um,
in the car, actually. I can see it. Um, so it's a Pixar film apparently called Small Fry, and he
yeah,
appears as one of the discarded fun meal toys.
yeah. So there you
Um,
go. The
yeah,
parody,
yeah, yeah.
making fun of the thing.
I'm telling you, they can make
Also,
money on that market now.
I
Yeah,
know. Also, I should say that, you know, I love the fact that this is so fast and breezy because if you think about it, I'm like, wait a minute. Where did all this Condorman branded machinery come
Yeah,
from in such a
exactly.
short amount of time?
Or not just that, but how quick does he turn these comics around? Because or is it so quick that I didn't
Yes.
understand that there was a time lapse? Because he meets up with you know, the Russian agent, and he's infatuated with her, so he draws her and he makes her into his version of an S&M character, in my opinion, Laser Lady. Like we started seeing
Yes.
some of his kinks. But like
listen,
later
Absolutely.
comics
on,
guys
like
don't get laid off, but you got to do what you got to do.
exactly. But later on, like she realizes she became a character because one of the kids goes, "Oh, you're the
No,
laser lady."
it's not just one kid. It's like 20 kids
Yeah.
show up on her doorstep and they're like, "You're a laser lady."
And
And I thought
and
the
I
same
was
thing.
just like, I didn't think I thought he had to put the comic on the shelf until he was done with this. I'm like, how quick are you churning these out? That this laser lady is not only a character, but like she's, you know, personified for these kids. I'm like,
Yeah,
but I like it, you know?
And I should
yeah.
add that she had her own comic. So it's not like she was part of Condorman.
Yeah,
She
she was
had
her
her
own
own
thing.
spin-off Laser Lady
Yeah.
comic. And I'm like, who's writing this? Is he putting them out every week? Like,
Yeah,
what's
was this
going on?
supposed to be like, because I thought it was like a quick turnaround, like after that mission. So was it supposed to be longer? Which also, I love when his friend is pitching this to his boss and he's trying to convince him that Condor Man isn't real. He's a comic book character. And he goes, and he's telling him about like, he's like Donald Duck. And he goes, Donald Duck isn't a real duck. And his boss just goes, interesting. Like he legitimately thought for a while that Donald Duck was real. It was, I'm like, I don't know why, but
Exactly.
the selling of that was so good. Like, huh.
That's
No,
Dana Eckler, folks. Dana Eckler. He plays a
yeah.
mean sheriff on Dark Shadows.
Well, that's it. I'm gonna have to definitely check it out on Freebie. I'm gonna definitely look into some
Yes,
Dark Shadows for sure. Well,
most
thank you guys
definitely.
again for being here again. You guys are awesome. Is there anything you want to talk about? Do you want to promote anything on Watch Skip Plus, Jose? Anything new and exciting going on?
Uh, well, since I'm being candid, I completely forgot about this recording. I also
I know
forgot
your
that
band knows.
Friday. I always forget, and I forgot apparently this week that we release episodes on Friday, and so unfortunately I didn't release them until today, which is Sunday, so 2 days late. But
That's
our
okay.
next episode is definitely going to be on Strangers Chapter 1,
Okay.
the first of a proposed trilogy, and that film is directed by Rennie Harlin, if you remember
Oh,
his
nice.
name, because he directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Die Hard 2, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, and then I think he went to movie jail for the flop Cutthroat Island. Um,
Hey, I like
Recently,
Cutthroat Island.
Harlan, I know, I love Cutthroat Island
But
too, but
financially, though, it killed a company. But I do have a
much,
soft spot
much,
for it.
much like Condor Man, it was
Yeah,
made for 100 million and it made 10 million.
you
Um,
know.
ouch.
Well, they got the
Yes,
one
and
and oh, but he needed one more zero at least.
just
Well,
one
Disney
more
didn't learn their
zero.
lesson because Disney went ahead and did fucking John Carter of Mars, which I loved, but that's another one they
Yes,
spent
Yeah,
like 152 million on and
yeah.
made
I
like
know.
20 million.
They also just called it John Carter instead of leading into the fact that it's a sci-fi movie, and so I think that also because if you
Yeah,
somehow don't know John Carter and you just heard that name, you'd probably think it's some like. So is that like Michael Clayton? I don't even
yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, okay.
Right.
Give us some
Actually,
context.
and this reminds me that like apparently there was a big fight over that title because they were like, well, no one's going to remember the source material. But I mean, John Carter from Mars definitely has a good ring to it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut. I think it's called, I want to say it's called Blink Twice or something. Channing
I
Tatum's in it.
I
Have you guys
have.
seen this?
I
Yeah.
seen it before I saw Challengers. They showed the trailer for it.
Okay.
So I just want everybody to know that in the trades, the original title for that film, which I think they should have kept, was, wait for it, Pussy Island.
Yes.
Yes, it should have been called Pussy Island. So every time I see that trailer, I'm like, Pussy Island.
Yeah, I think they missed the boat and not because that's
I
an
mean, come on,
alluring
the guy already
title.
did Magic Mike, so you got
Yeah.
Mike. It's only logical that his next movie should be Pussy Island.
Pussy
after Magic
Island,
Mike.
right?
Just because you brought up Magic Mike, and since I'm no longer on Watch Get Plus
Mm.
regularly and was not able to do challengers, I like how in 3 Magic Mike movies, as I complained about in our Last Dance review, I didn't see any dong, yet I saw dong in challengers. So thank you, Luca Guadagnino.
Yes, thank you. Now it might not have been the dong of the leads, but
But
we saw
I will
dong
take
anyway.
any
It's
dong that I
just
can
fun.
get at that
Exactly.
point.
Exactly. It was dong laden is what it was.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. And Justin, do you have? I know you're not, obviously you're pretty busy with life. Is there anything you want to promote or anything to talk
Uh,
about? Or-
I'm gonna promote Watch Get Plus. I know that
Okay.
I have it right now. I'm not on the show, but it is always, my heart will always be there. I don't have anything else in the
Yes.
pipeline, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll become the podcasting drifter and just appear every now and then. But
Well,
Yes.
I'm gonna try to rope you guys both in again eventually. Hopefully, in another month or so, I'll hit you
Yeah.
guys up and see if we can get you back together
Yeah.
and do another
Oh,
episode
yeah.
or something.
Do we need to do another Oliver Reed? Is that going to be?
That's it.
You
You
should.
guys are our exclusive go-to Oliver Reed people.
Yes.
And we promise this time we won't wear t-shirts in the same
Yeah,
color family.
I don't know how
What's
we
going
did that.
on?
Yours is Child's Play. Mine is Jane Silent Bob's Secret Stash.
I
don't.
love it. So yeah, mine is it's a Good Guys
Yeah, and I guess
t-shirt.
Nice.
Kinda.
I just got a black
Oh,
Frankenstein.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ah, excellent. Fright
I know.
Rags, or did you get that from Fright Rags, or John, the t-shirt? Did you get your Frankenstein t-shirt
Me.
from
I'm
Fright
sorry.
Rags,
Yeah, no, I
or
got this as a Christmas gift from my fiance, so I'm not sure where she got it from. To
oh,
be
okay.
honest with you.
It
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
looks
sorry.
like
I
Fright
thought you were
Rags,
talking
though.
to Justin. I'm sorry. My brain
It
not
doesn't.
working.
No. It's all good. I'd never discovered Fright Rags until recently, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
like horror t-shirts. I love them.
Yeah.
I love them.
That's
Good
awesome.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess before I head out for the day, I'm going to give a shout out, of course, to Jose and Watch Skip Plus. Again, thank you again, both of you guys, for being on here. I'm going to give a shout out to Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb. Every week they take a look at movies that bombed out the box office, and they talk about whether it's truly deserving of the title of bomb or if it really deserves it or not. I heard you were on a recent episode with Alex, which is great.
I
You guys
was
talked about
actually.
on
Yeah.
the Psycho remake, which was a lot. That was a blast.
Yep.
And then also the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema, the Godfathers. Those guys every week they're dropping off new stuff, and a lot of times it's stuff I have never heard before. So definitely check out the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema, and also the guys over in Raiders of the Podcast. These guys tackle like sometimes 2 or 3 shows in one episode, and then they debate which one they think is the best. I have a hard time with my ADD. I feel like just covering one film. I can only imagine talking about 2 or 3 films in one
Yeah.
episode.
If Justin and I
those are-
did that, a Watch Skip Plus episode would be like 4 hours.
Yeah, I
Like
think
our Oscar.
I was gonna say it would be our Oscars episode. Even our, catch up. Me passing the baton to Alex, where we went over a couple of movies, was still pretty lengthy, and that was just me going over like 2 movies I had saw since.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Trust me. So yeah, that's what's going on. I'm also going to be recording later on today, like I mentioned briefly with Troy and Brad. We're going to be talking about the Crying Freeman film. So hopefully I'll have 2 new episodes for everybody by the end of Sunday.
Awesome.
So I want to thank you guys and everyone for watching, and I hope you guys have a great weekend and you enjoyed the show. And with that, I will go ahead and record.
Also,
There
it
we
just
go.
hit me. Has Not a Bomb covered Condorman?
No, but they probably should.
They should, because I'm like, this is definitely a bomb.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. There's no way. There's no two ends about that for sure. I mean, with a $14 million budget, you lost 9 million. Phew.
I
I
wonder.
honestly, I thought it would. Honestly, I thought it went straight to video, but it did actually have a theatrical release.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
It was like
surprising.
I think I looked because I was curious when Devil and Max Devlin came out, and that was like January of '81, and then this was like August of '81. So that was still prime summertime like going, but it just didn't hit with audiences.
Yeah, I mean, some
Yeah.
years you just have those years, where it's just like, like it's weird because you have those summers sometimes where you're like, man, this just one banger after another, one amazing movie after another, and then you have those other years where it's just like
Also,
6 months and you feel like you're lucky
it,
to get one halfway decent movie.
also, I
You
feel like
know?
Superman 2 might have came out that year, and you would
Oh, it
think,
did?
I think, no, 1980. Never mind, it came out a year prior. But even
Oh,
then, I
okay.
guess it probably was still going into, because I almost thought like, I wonder if they were trying to beat Superman 2 to the punch. But I'm like, unless that was a Christmas release, I feel like that would have been released by like Memorial Day. But that would have
Yeah.
been a
Yeah.
year in the bag. So for some reason, I thought that was 81, but it was 80. That makes more sense because like, trying to do it right on the coattails of Superman 2 is already a death sentence if you're thinking about it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Superman. I love Superman too. I don't. It's what I
Yeah.
still love the original. I think that more than anything, but the sequel, considering that they replaced the director, what's like when he had done like what 75% of that movie, and then they brought
Yeah.
Richard Lester in, and they basically like restarted the whole movie.
A movie
Considering
with
that,
two dicks.
yeah,
Richard Donner, Richard Lester.
yeah, right. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? It's
Wah,
awesome.
wah. Anyway,
Well,
all
yeah.
right.
Well, it was
Thanks for
great seeing you
reuniting
guys.
us, by the way.
Yeah,
Hi,
this was
Oh
cool.
Red.
yeah,
I miss
Yeah.
you.
I miss
yeah,
you too.
definitely. I will
But
catch
we
up
still
with you.
have memes and texting.
Yes, we
Oh well,
do
there you
some memes
go.
and I mean, I'll be honest, half the reason I have Instagram still wasn't just to keep in touch with certain people. I'm like, I gotta let some people still know I'm doing it. It's basically because I was like, I send Jose and other people memes on there a lot. So I'm like, I don't want to lose that meme outage. That's where I tend to get a lot of my memes from. So I'm like, I gotta keep it for that.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Well, thank you guys again for both coming on. Like I said, it was a pleasure, and I'll definitely reach out to you guys and try to get you guys on soon.
Yeah,
I'd love to have
definitely.
you again.
I'd love to be back
Let us
on
All right.
again.
know.
This was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Take care, guys. Have a good weekend. I
Talk to
appreciate
you guys
everything.
later.
Take care.